So welcome, Elle. Thank you for joining us. You're on mute.
Thank you. I have a bit of laryngitis, so I'll do the best I can here. Oh, I just have a deep voice for the whole thing.
So Elle, we have spoken a few times, and yeah, we met at the school for the work in 2023. I think you were staffing the school then, if I remember, and you were helping out, and yeah, it was great to meet you, and it's good to be back in touch. So not everyone might know you here, so if you can just briefly tell us a bit where you're from, how did you meet the work, and yeah, how long have you been doing it, stuff like that.
Okay, and I'll try to be aware of time as well, since we're on a certain time frame. Well, this is really nice. Thank you for all doing that lovely popcorn. Most of you, if you met me in the past on schools, I went by the name of Mary. Elle is my middle name, and I go by Elle. I'm from Fairfield, Iowa. Prior to doing the work, I did something called options dialogue, which is a type of inquiry-based moving meditation. And I was in a very difficult marriage, and I had 3 little children, and we were traveling across the country, and I said, I'm not going to make it across the country with my husband. I said, it's too difficult. So my friend said, she gave me a Walkman and a cardboard box filled with cassettes of Katie. And she said, just listen to these. So I put one on, and I was also knitting as well, as my children in the back seat were going, are we there yet? Every 100 miles. And probably the end of the first cassette, it was only one session that I listened to. I just stopped and sat there for a long time, and I, in awe of, I said, this woman has just distilled the whole field of cognitive behavioral therapy down to 4 questions and 3 turnarounds. And I was gone as soon as I had see that. So I listened to the rest of the tapes. And I was so excited, I wanted to share it. And I said this on the stream that, whatever they call it, that Katie was on, that we all listened in when she was talking about dissolving the Institute into our hearts. And what I said to her, I said, I was just so naive. I was in number 4. It's like, this is great. Let's just spread it. And so the first thing I did is began just putting out posters and inviting people to my home. That was the beginning. So that was back in about 2003. And should I say any more, Deepa? 2003, that gives you an idea. And I've been doing the work every day as well. And I don't always do a formalized sheet. Often I don't. What I do is because of how and I think you all probably do this as well, because the questions and the sub-questions are so intimate. It's very easy for me to go to, for example, when we just did this, how do I treat others who I would like to talk about the work to? And I began to go there and look at that. So these are the things that come up for me, just one single question oftentimes. And I sit with that and I do the 4 questions on it, even though it's a sub-question of I just ask myself, how do I treat them? Is it true they really wouldn't want me? Is it true they're going to laugh at me? Is it true they're going to blah, 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 blah? And I just go one by one. And I said, and then I asked, what's the worst case scenario? And so I'm constantly, for example, I'm setting up for an event and I'm doing all these processes while I'm setting up for the event. Just like no one's going to show up. What's the worst case scenario? I thought, oh, I get to go home and finish that project I was working on. And if it goes to something else, then I just do inquiry in the moment. So I do on-the-spot inquiry all the time. It's become so intimate that.
Elle, I'm just wondering if you could just share with us, what does it mean to you to move the work in the world?
Yeah, I saw that as part of this. Thank you, by the way. In the beginning, I wanted to move the work because I really felt that people needed it and that they would benefit. Until I spoke to someone from Katie's former upper people that were with her all the time, and it was about working in hospitals doing the work. And I said, I think I could really help these people. And he said nothing. He was completely silent. And then he finally said, I help. That's all he said. And the temple bells rang. And I sat in that, thought, I help. Whose business am I in? I help. How could I know what's best for this person? I help. And that started a process of changing the way I felt about the work. And the attachment to giving the work in the world ended. Not that it didn't come up periodically, but it would fall right back into this. How could I possibly know that they need this? How could I why would I want to have them bypass their own path that they're on and what they're growing in? I don't know this. So that's, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Does anyone want to know more from that question? Feel free to chip in.
I'm interested to know the different ways in which actually you have done this. So you mentioned hospital and yeah, so and a little bit of how did those encounters or avenues open for you?
Well, to start, I just had people come to my home. And so that was for years. I did that. And then people would say to me, oh, we should do this at the rec center, or we should do this here. And I'd say, okay, I'll call them. And it was just a very simple invitation. So that was the beginning. Then we had, there were people in my town that did the work that I was unaware of. And something occurred in our town that was very catastrophic. And people came to me and I said, you know, it would be great to hold some kind of event where people could do a collective process on this event. But I was scared to death to do this. And now I'm coming out public, really public. And a friend of mine said, just do it. And so I started telling a few people about it. I said, I don't know how to run equipment. I don't know how to place ads, blah, blah, blah. And it just happened. Someone said, I'll run your equipment. Oh, okay. I'll place an ad. I'll do the artwork. I'll do everything. Okay. And I live in a town of 10,000. And I didn't know what the response would be. But as it turned out, and this was a very significant shift for me. This was about a suicide with a young woman, a mother, and she was a very awful death. And so when the ad went in the paper, I decided to do it on depression because no one was talking about that this person had depression and they needed help. That was my thought. So we ended up having this event, and it was unbelievably packed. There were 2 lines down the sides. All the chairs were filled. All the front was filled. It was just an enormous amount of people in this hall. And no one wanted to do the work, including all my friends who did the work. And I thought, shoot, I have to run this event. I have to talk about a lifetime of depression, of low-grade depression that I've had. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this too. And I sat there doing my inquiry. And so I said, okay, to one of my friends, I said, I'll do the work, you facilitate me. And so I was holding the mic and I started the event with, what you're about to see is what depression looks like when it's not expressed. I said, I'm totally afraid to be up here. My friends, my family, everyone's here. And I'm going to do the work on, I'm angry at people who judge people who are depressed. And it was a very good facilitation. And I had had a low grade, even though I was doing the work and even though I had 30, 40 years of meditation, I was still very, I still had this low grade depression situation. So we did the work, and afterwards, and I was very raw about it. I cried, I was angry, I had a lot of feelings. And afterwards, people came up to me and said, thank you, you've done my work. You know, things like that. So the upshot of this, and this is why I'm such a strong believer in the work, I no longer had that depression. I discovered it was shame that had kept me so still experiencing it. And that was a great lesson for me. And I became very bold after that, because I didn't think anything like this was going to happen. So after that, I just began to do the work, and wherever it felt invited. This is the key thing when you're asking about doing the work. It's just, I approach the work as always an invitation. So I don't bring up the work. I don't bring up, I don't bring it up. And what could happen, though, in the process of doing it is very different, and we could talk about that later. So I did the work there, and then I was doing it. Just people would say, oh, our preschool is vacant at the end of the afternoon. Why don't you bring a group in? So I just put a poster up. I didn't spend any money. And people would show up because they had already been to just either at my home or at my home was a very powerful place to do the work, because it began to get the work percolating in community. And it was very safe for me. And I did not know much about the work. I just used the yellow card. And that's it. And but I was very reverent of the importance of silence. And sometimes I would add in small things, like a person might speak and I might say, is there anything else? And I was shocked at how another layer, it's as if the expression gave permission to go deeper. That's the only way to describe it. And then it did. And so that was very powerful. So so that was at home, and then just sometimes I felt like I wanted to do a course in the work, so I would do online things. Just I have since that time we've had a lot more people do the work, and I have like 150 on a an email list. So I'd send it out, and I'd get people coming. The work on money, or the work on parenting, or you know, the kind of things that people often do the work on. And in the when we have the e-courses, that kind of stuff. So that was going on. And then I've been a chaplain for a long time in a hospital, and I wanted to bring the work up. And I said it to Katie. I said, I really want to, I know I can help these people. It's like, I love to laugh at my arrogance, my ego. And Katie just listened. Bless her heart. She didn't give me any encouragement. She didn't give me anything. And that's always been my blessing with Katie. She never gives me anything when I want so much. So I went in first doing the work with iHelp. And I spent a lot of time in that. So this is where I would say conversational inquiry was born. And I refer to that because my experience has been, if I say to, hi, I'm El Roche, I'm facilitator of the work of Byron Katie, and I go into that, I'm in a small, conservative, red state, and I could feel, you know, or this is my story, I could feel that people were less than cordial, you know, they'd like start moving away. So I would go, and in the hospital, for example, because I'm a meditator, and there are a lot of meditators in the townspeople didn't go for it for a while, although now we've been here about 50 years and there's about 3,000 people. They would ask me, well, what side of town do you live on? How long have you been here? And that would assess whether or not I'm a local or whether I'm and I did the work on this as well. Before I would do anything where I was going to speak to the public, I did my homework. I did my deep work. And so in this case, people would say, where are you from? I said, you're probably wondering if I'm a meditator. Oh, what? Yes, I am. I said, I am. I came here, blah, 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 years ago. I'm a part of the university with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I do that. Would you like to have a chaplain visit? I said, it doesn't matter what we talk about. So we're just here together and having a visit. And so that's one of the ways I approach the work is, what's the worst case scenario that's happening right now? And I move through it fearlessly. It's like, and I could go into a lot of examples of that. And that's how I would enter a room with someone. And they would be going through something like, an example was a woman a little younger than me, and she was about to have gallbladder surgery, and she was scared to death she was going to die because her mother had died 25 years earlier from the same surgery. So, and she wasn't able to have the surgery because her blood pressure was way up and all these things, and she couldn't have the surgery. And so I sat with her, and as a chaplain, again, I'm very fearless when I'm with people. And fearless, I don't generally use that word. I'm just using it here so you can quickly catch on. I said to her, may I hold your hand? May I join you? May I sit close? And we'd sit together, and I would say things like, I hear you're having a difficult time with this. A lot of stressful thoughts. Would you like me to ask you a few questions that may give you some freedom around this? Would that be of help for you? And usually, probably every time they said yes. And then I would go right in. I would just have picked one of those one-liners. And you're going to die tomorrow if you do this surgery. And we'd go through the whole thing. When I work with religious people, I have used something I took from one of Katie's books, which is when we get very far into it, I said, can you know more than God? And so touching, so touching. How deep their love and faith is. And so in that particular situation, you know, the woman was greatly relieved. Her numbers went way down, and the next day she had surgery, and that night I went to see her, and she's pretty drugged up, but clear enough to see me, and she reaches her hand out and she says, I'm still alive. And we laughed together. I said, yes, you are. Yes, it's beautiful. And that's how simple I make the work. Now, had she said to me, where did you learn this? Bam, I'd be right in. I would go into the whole thing. I would leave her the website, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But I stay in my lane with where I am as respect for other people's beliefs and for where they're at, the tenderness of where they're at. And it doesn't mean I don't bring up Byron Katie, because I could very well do that. Consequently, I've gotten in a lot of places I don't know I would have gotten into. So I did that for years in the hospital. And then I did it in hospice as well, mostly with the families. But I've done a lot with talking to people about their last moments of life. You know, what are you afraid? I'll just ask them directly. How are you navigating this journey right now? And then I just let them speak. If I find a one-liner, I might say, would you like me to ask you a few questions that may make your journey smoother? I just tie it right into the moment that they're at and what is so loud in their heart. And then I go through at least the 4 questions and 1 or 2 turnarounds. But I do it, I might insert a sub-question if it seems appropriate. I had a gentleman in the hospital, and he was ready to go, but his children didn't want him to go. And he was really struggling with this. And it was struggling, and I said, we were just talking. I said, well, can you talk to your children? Oh, no. So he said, my children would be blah, blah, blah. There was a belief, and we did that. And at the end, I said, without that thought, who would you be with your children when the impulse came up that you wanted to speak to them about this? Who would you be? And it turned out that he felt some freedom to speak to them about taking the lifelines off. So that's in a hospital setting. Then further, please don't let me run on if you're watching the time. Further, I was, there's some people familiar with the work, and they wanted me to go and work with people in the inner city high schools of Chicago, high school students that in the gun violent area. It's very intense. And the time that I had to work with people was very, very limited. So I'm just going to give you this last story for now, and then we'll go into ways in which the things that I have to go through in my mind in order to go anywhere to do the work, because I know that's why you're here. And the time would be very short. So how do you do the work with people? Because I took it very seriously when Katie said, I understand the work to be very ancient, even though she came up with it herself. The word is a part of the ancient Vedic culture called Advaita, which is asking, who am I? Number 4. So I took it very seriously. And that's the only reason I ever do adjustments of not using trademark as the first thing. And like I said, I'm very open to it. I will put out I give people books, I do different things. And I know this is a concern for people. So, because I noticed Heike just left. And if that's the case, you have to decide this for yourself. My experience has been that I do the work by introducing Byron Katie in the work. I do the work as conversational inquiry, and I do the work as 1 or 2 questions. Sometimes that's all I'll have time to give. If I have a student come into my office and they're afraid to go home, I might only have 20 minutes to work with them. And I sit down and I said, would you like me to support you right now? I could ask you a few questions.
Must be handy, Elle, being there in the position of chaplain, where, I mean, that kind of goes with the expectation people, you're going to listen to people. I don't know if you have some kind of uniform or are you wearing cross or something like that. I imagine that must be helpful.
It's a captive audience. That's for sure. Yeah.
They're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere, or in the high schools either. You know, and they love getting out of class. And so I would just sit with them and ask them, how do you live your life? If I've asked them 1 and 2, I would ask them, how do you react? How do you live your life when that thought's always running in your head about, this one person was about some violence in her neighborhood. And she sat deep in it. And I invited that because these children, you know, they sit against walls because they don't want a situation where they can't see behind them. They need to protect themselves. And so there's a lot of hypervigilance. And so to sit with me in a room and close their eyes, and I oftentimes invite that because that hypervigilance is really going when their eyes are open. And so there's examples, and I may only be able to get that. And I said, just imagine for a minute who you would be. You're in school. Are you safe here? Yes, I'm safe. So imagine who you would be going to your classes right now. Because this girl had a problem with beating people up. I'm giving an example. Imagine who you would be without the thought that there's going to be a shooting in your neighborhood this afternoon. I said, and I'm not asking you to drop the story or not protect yourself in any way. I said, just imagine. And then that's how I do the work sometimes. And I'd only have 15 or 20 minutes. So I have the thing I want to say is I have no agenda about people wanting to do it at all. I asked a question. If they say no, that's good. Then I don't do that. What I really would love to share, if the difference between having an agenda, like as you already got, that my wisdom is greater than someone else's, for example, and developing slowly and painfully through so much affiliation with Katie, some humility, is that Deepa asked me this question, well, then how do you move the work forward? And I'm reminded of something Katie said, and I use it continually all day, which is drop out of my mind and into my heart and wait for the answer to arise. And when I use that, what I find is sometimes I'm curious and I want to ask the person, may I ask you some questions? And sometimes I don't feel it. And without that, my experience has been almost always people say yes, because I have nothing to gain. I have nothing to lose. I'm just a person sitting with someone who my heart is open to them. So that's on a personal basis. Any questions before I move into practical stuff about moving the work forward?
Yes, Ellen.
Elle, that was so nice what you just quoted. Would you like to repeat this, please? What Katie said to you?
Yes. Katie was on stage and someone was there and they couldn't settle very well into the questions. And so she said, honey, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And I invite you to drop out of your mind and into she said mind, I believe, and not head. Drop out of your mind and into your heart and let the answer arise. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen. I think now we have had a small glimpse of your conversational style. I'm wondering if anybody here, because everyone seems to have tried some form of moving the work, can we have a volunteer maybe, and who can sit with a situation where you found it difficult to move, and then L can be L, and let's see how the conversation actually pans out. So would the audience be interested in that, in doing a demo? Any volunteers? Yes, Ellen. Ellen, you raised your hand, correct? Yes.
I don't know if my situation is appropriate because it's a future image. At the end of January, I'm going to visit the class of my son, and I'm going to read with them the book Tiger, Tiger, Is It True? And I don't know what will happen there. I'm also afraid. And I have the idea of doing maybe a little inquiry, but I still don't know what it should be about, or I even don't know how the kids will react to that book, if they're interested, if they are bored. This is the situation, and everything is in Spanish because I'm German, but I live in Spain. So I also have this this little barrier with a foreign language.
So have you been invited to do this?
Well, I offered this to the teacher, to the head
Okay.
teacher, and she was instantly open to that. And she said, yes, she wants me to do that. Yes.
How old are the children?
10 years old.
Perhaps, Ellen, do you want to play the role of a child whom you're fearing?
Or whatever it is you're fearing.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is you're feeling prior to even starting.
But they won't be interested. Yeah, this is.
So you have a student, and so you have all the students are not interested. Is that what you're afraid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least most of them, especially the Spanish boys.
And that may be true. I always go to worst case scenario before I enter any situation. What's the worst that could happen to me? Oh, they're not interested. Oh, well, then I don't have to attend to that half of the room. Now, I don't try to convince people of the work. The work is born out of genuine interest in something I can offer. Now, with children, I would be very childlike. I would be, let's say I just had the boys. Let's just try that first. Just a boy class. I would ask them what they're interested in. What are you interested in? Oh, you like sports. What's the hardest thing to do in sports? Oh, does it?
They would say football. They're all in football, apart from my son.
Yeah, yeah. And I might say something. Do you ever feel nervous? Do you ever feel like you could have done it better? Or, I would sit in their experience of a 10-year-old who loves football and has to go out on a field and I would just ask questions. I would warm the environment. These are with children. I could always just read the book, but I wouldn't assume that they're supposed to get anything from it. Because then I'm thinking my wisdom is greater than theirs. But I would connect with them. I try to sit in someone's shoes. And that's what I feel Katie does. That's why Katie can track people so well. It's because she sits and she is doing the work. And this is what I've really trained myself. I am doing the work when someone has a stressful thought. I am finding that belief in me. And so being curious and finding what maybe their experience is, what is my experience while it's going on. And it makes for a very fluid type of talk. I can imagine it must be scary sometime when you're next up, or you're sitting on the bench and you've got to get up. How is that for you? Scary. Things like that. So that's how I would try to warm that environment up, is to know them. So I'm going to read you something, and you tell me if at the end there's anything of value, because your teacher thinks that it might be of some value to you. So you tell me if you could use this in your sports. And you may have a few more now that they think it's about their stressful thoughts around sports. That's what I would do. And if they were very open, I might do inquiry with one of them right there on the moment, saying, what's difficult for you? Did someone say they wanted to see, did something come up in the chat that I need to drop popcorn inquiry? I'm not good enough. Oh, no. Okay. So, would you like to play a role with one of these boys? Ellen, would you like to play a role as being the worst case?
Yes.
Your
Yes.
fears?
Yes.
Okay.
You mean me? I'm the footballist.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So again, I would have done inquiry before I went in, and I would give myself the time to imagine my worst case scenarios, and I would question them. Because then I enter the room as an innocent, curious, without agenda. And this is, for me, essential for moving the work forward. Without it, I don't do it. Without it, I say things like I did at that depression. I said, I'm completely afraid. I'm afraid you're going to judge me and blah, blah, blah. And I just said it all out, and I had to, because I didn't do inquiry before that. And so you've done inquiry, and now you're walking into the room. Who would you be, Ellen, without that fear that the worst case scenario, these boys are going to be whatever, fooling around, not listening?
there would be a kind of curiosity. Yeah, kind of joyful curiosity, because I don't know the boys really, and also not the girls. Without the thought or without that fear. I mean, why shouldn't they not be interested? I mean, the even if I couldn't say enough or ask enough, or even if I wouldn't understand well their answers, because they also talk a hard slang here. The minimum I could just do is reading the book in Spanish, and that is more than less. This is already something. Yes. And there's actually no need to do the inquiry with them. It's just on top. I think it's easier to get into contact with them by asking, for instance, these questions you have suggested, and asking them, would you like to hear a story about another guy, another kid, how he's doing, and then maybe I could read the book or not. I don't know. Whatever happens, I really don't know. I have no plan, but yes, this is all I can say right now at the moment. But I see the point that I should do some inquiry before I'm going to meet them at the end of January.
So just notice when you believe the thought, how you feel in your body when you're about to enter that room, and notice without the thought that they're going to be disruptive, they're not going to be interested, blah, blah, blah. Just notice how you feel.
Actually, there's joy to see them. And to experience them, how they are. I mean, I know them since years, but I don't know how they are. Also excited about how are they now at the age of 10 years, and I only have in my mind how they were with 3 years, when they were 3 years old. Maybe this is what I can say now.
Thank you. And one thing I would recommend to all of you, before you go into any situation where you wish to talk about the work, you ask yourself the question, what's the worst that could happen? Because that's where your mind is going. And all the fears that pop in, and the how it shrinks us physically. That's why I asked the thing about feeling, because you know what it's like going into a room when you're not comfortable, you're very tense. And sitting in that inquiry is very powerful. When I sit with you in that inquiry, what I get is, and I'm walking in the room, is, oh, just like you said, I'm curious. There's joy. Now I would probably say, what I said to you, if you had disruptive boys, I would just address them, but bring the whole room in. I just had this a week ago with someone who teaches martial arts, and they want to do the work with them, these young teenagers. I said, well, did you ask them if they wanted to do the work? She goes, no. I said, well, that's where I would begin. And I said, and I would suggest that how I used to handle an old boyfriend, this is another way that I was doing inquiry, is he didn't want anything to do with the work. So, okay. So he would talk about his family and the difficulties, and I would say, wow, how have you lived your life believing that thought? And I would just sit and give him time in his own inquiry. Remember, this is inquiry. Katie's thing about bringing people back when they're out of it. Why? Because it's inquiry that brings the self-realization. It's the inquiry that brings us back home to ourself. So always in question, out of, in my case, it was loving curiosity. And so he had a very traumatic, and then I'd say to him, well, that happened a long time ago. And I said, I can see how it's impacted your life. Who would you be without that thought now? That is something from your past. It doesn't even exist. Boom, a whole inquiry is done. In that moment, that person just did a powerful session of the work. And please, I really believe in doing all 4 questions and turnarounds. But when someone tells me they don't want to do the work, what happens is my heart, this is what I want to say. If I don't have an agenda, there's also the sincere curiosity, just like you're talking about. You're just curious and joyful. Wow. How have you lived your life? What would it be like if you didn't have that thought moving forward in your life? So powerful. The work is only a few very powerful questions. And then at a later time, I might go into, and you could also do this, go into the turnarounds. And you could do that with the children. That must be so difficult. I have found when I meet people at their level, I've never met resistance. I've ever met resistance.
I've seen the.
I've met resistance, but I sat with it. I sat with the person. I go, I can see you're having a difficult time right now. How can I support you? What needs to be done right now? And I asked them to teach me. And then they give me what they need. They tell me what they need.
Wow, this is powerful. This is super respectful. I'm very moved by what you have told us. Ellen, I'm so, yeah, I made a similar experience. I have a friend, she's a psychotherapist, and I asked her if I could, she called me 2 times at night. And I asked her if I could ask her some questions, and she said yes. And I also remember once I told her, well, look, what I did, that was the work of Byron Katie. And then she had another problem and we wanted to meet. We made an appointment and she got so scared that she canceled it because it had this, this is the work of Byron Katie. And then half a year later, she called me again when she had a problem. And I said to her, if you would like to, I could ask you the questions without telling her again the name. And then she said yes. And she was very grateful afterwards. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the opportunity. And I'm always very clear that I understand the trademark of this. And I'm very, very respectful of it. And I would, like this, tell Katie, I told Katie on that call, I said, I do conversational inquiry. But I would tell her, I would be not hesitant to say, Katie, this is how I'm moving the work in the world. What do you think of this? So I know there are people, including that when I was in the Institute, that a deviation, and I'm going to use that word specifically, was oftentimes challenging. And I realized that I want to do the work like Katie does the work. Katie's my role model. I'm going to do the work. And then I had one of her facilitators, when you're in the Institute, you have to do 5 hours of facilitation with one of the people that are registered as facilitators. When I was in the Institute, I said, I want the one that's always with Katie. And I interviewed her, said, I want to be able to have a conversation with anyone about this, anyone. I said, I don't want to feel limited or that people are afraid of me or anything. So I said, so I want to see how it can be done in a very comfortable way that will, that's inviting. If I make an invitation and they want it, I can go forward. And if not, I don't. And at the end, people have said sometimes, this is wonderful. I said, yeah, it's very simple. I actually learned it from a woman who was from the desert of California. And she really helped me to see that powerful questions can change my life. And I said, if you want to know more about that, I can tell you. Leaving it there. No solicitation.
Context is so important, isn't it, Elle? Knowing where you are and the words that are likely to be heard in that space. I'm seeing a question here from Muriel. Muriel, would you like to ask Elle that question?
Yes, thank you. I'm noticing I've so much wanting to promote, well, not to promote, to offer the work, to move the work in the world, that sometimes I offer the work and I'm not sure people are interested to. Like I'm going to offer the work for students and they signed up, 11 of them signed up, but I don't know if they know anything about the work. And I can see now that I fear them to not be interested. So I was interested to know if you have this experience to
Yes.
the work without being asked for. And then, yeah, what happened and any recommendation, because my want and the should are very strong. Like everyone should know about the work, specifically in when you work in, being in relationship, like as a social worker. And now I'm like, and now I fear them not to be interested. So.
Well, I love this one, by the way. This is a great, great opportunity. So without my story that I can give them anything, I walk in and I'm just delighted to be there. And that's what's happening in my body. That's the first language they receive. And then I ask, does anyone even know what the work is? And they'd probably say no, and I'd probably laugh. And I said, why are you here? I might say that. I can go a full range. It just depends. I've spent a lot of time in public, in front of the public, just being invited for whatever. So I might say, and they might go, no, we don't know what it is. I said, well, does anyone have stressful thoughts? That's how I would probably start. And I said, so basically, if I could share with you something that you could put in your pocket and take with you to help you handle some of those stressful thoughts, would that be of value? And I'd let them lead with their interest. And then I would say, that's what it was for me. I needed something I could take with me all the time because I have a lot of stress. How many have a lot of stressful thoughts? How old are these people? Are they adults or children? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. They could be quite young, but all adult.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
from 20, 22 till don't know, 65.
Yeah, and I might say, in the world today, the only things that we can put in our pocket to deal with stress are things that might be illegal. I might say that, or things that are we have to go get coffee, or we have to do these things in order to manage the stress that we have in our lives these days. I said, this is something for you, that it's a way for you to, it's a simple thing I can share. And if you want to know more, I can tell you at the end, or not, whatever serves you.
Yeah, what I'm noticing, and I'm not very comfortable with that, I fear you to judge me. I notice sometimes I have difficulty to say when I offer, like, it is 3 days, actually. It's 2 days in March, and then 3 weeks later, it's one more day. And
is this a different class each time?
No, it's the same class. It's the same group.
Oh, okay.
And what I did not do, and we could talk about that, but I'm not comfortable to say that I didn't write down that it is the work of Byron Katie. I said it's self-inquiry, it is IBSR, so I was respecting where it comes from, but I was not, sometimes I'm not comfortable, and I've questioned them, and I could question more. What I am afraid of when I say the work of Byron Katie, like to put her name. And so I didn't write it down. I wrote, IBSR and self-inquiry, and it's a way of, I don't know what I wrote actually, it's in French. But now I can feel how I am. I'm anxious. I love your questions, and thank you for that. That's a lot already. But when you say, does anyone know about the work? Well,
okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, so let's erase that one.
It's a good one.
Okay. If I was gonna see people 3 times, I would approach this very differently. I would say
3 days. 3 days.
3 whole days?
Yeah, it's really like a seminar. Like, it's really much more than an introduction. It's an introduction, but it's like comment on dit la formation continue, Sandrine, tu sais? Like ou Angélique.
I get it. I get it.
After the teaching, you can have other teaching, like 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a year, and then and you can choose what you want. So they choose those 3 days. And my title was I don't judge you. Is that true? That's the title. And then they signed up, and now it's in 2 months.
Oh, that is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
It
Wow,
is.
because you can go
Scary.
you can go very deep with this. Okay,
Yeah.
so basically I would have started it out giving an understanding of inquiry. I would also explain that cognitive behavioral therapy is a type of questioning one's thoughts. There's been tremendous research on it, that it has a way of creating new neurons in the brain and new brain synapse. I would say that. And what that means is that let's imagine you're a horse and you're holding a carriage behind you, and they put the blinders on the horse, and you lead your life this way with certain ways, limited thinking we have. Does anyone have limited thinking? Does you ever hold back from things you really want in your life? I always invite and engage the audience because this is for them, not for me. And they say yes. And so imagine what we're doing is a very, very simple form of cognitive behavioral therapy, which it is. It's an inquiry, self-inquiry, and with a little taste of compassionate Buddhism. Because that's how I see the turnarounds. They're the time when I can turn compassionate. And really, not me turn compassionate, where the person is able to turn this back in. Also in number 3, but it's that time where you can, I want them to do what I'm not willing to do for them, you know, things like that. And that's how I would start it. And then I would say, I'd like you to make a list, write down some of your stressful thoughts. Well, you're going to get the audience going over that one. I have too many to write down. That's okay. And I could talk to you for an hour about this.
I would love to.
There's so much.
Yeah.
But if you're going to develop it over 3 different sessions, 3 different sessions all day, or 3 different sessions 1 hour each?
Yeah, it's 8 hours a day.
Dang.
Well, 8 times 45 minutes. Actually, it's six times fuller.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you understood. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's really, I'm happy.
So there could be lots and lots of things, and I would, you know, yeah, there could lots of things, and I realize we're running out of time, and so I don't think I can spend any more time on this. But thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful. You've been given a great gift.
Elle, are you happy for participants to contact you direct? For example, would you invite Muriel to continue the conversation with you directly outside of the meeting?
Sure, that's fine.
If she wants to, that's great. Okay, so could you pop your best contact details in the chat for us?
I think I have it, Sally. I can.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Deepa. Of course you do.
Yeah.
But if anyone is interested, it's just the work with Elle at Gmail.
Okay, thank you. Ellen.
I'll post it in the chat. I just had thought that if Elle would like to spend some time with all of us, I would also appreciate this at another time, because I already noticed that you have so much to tell. There's so much value in every word you say that it's, for me, it sounds like having a 2.0 of this. And I really, really want to thank you, Deepa and Elle, for doing this. Deepa, for you having that idea. I hope you had the idea. And I tried so many times to get in contact with you, Elle. We wrote several times, and we never realized, it was never possible to do it. And I'm so glad that the universe was so friendly, and we're here now, and this is so great. Thank you, Deepa and Elle.
Someone just wrote in about difficult clients. I want to say something about difficult client. One of the things that I say with difficult client is, do you want to be here? Tell me what's going on for you that's difficult right now. I interrupt a session sometimes. It depends on the situation, you know, without having a scenario. But I've had people look like they're going to die during sessions, and they're reaching for their pills and water because I thought they were going to die. But I also did emergency night, whatever that is, you know, you do the 24-hour watch when you're a school staff. And I've seen people, and so I know that the work can be that powerful and make people look like they're going to die. But on a sidebar, that was a sidebar, sorry about that. I've had people sarcastic. And I just asked them, do you want to be here? Because I always begin by saying, well, one of the things I require, if it's needed to say this, is that you have an open mind and your willingness maybe to look at something you may never have looked at before. Is that something you're open to? And I find out in advance. So for that one, another one I had, they kept going out of the work, out of the work, out of the work. And I said to them, I said, you know, we're going to go back. And this is with the formalized, the work session. And I said, when you leave the work, you leave inquiry. And when you leave inquiry, we go back into the old way that we've done things, which is we mull them over, we try to talk things out with a friend, and things of that. I said, but that's not what the work is. The work is about you questioning what is going on inside of you at any given moment when you're given a question. I said, when you leave that, you no longer are doing that. And this person said, well, what am I paying you for? And I said, you're paying me to do inquiry, which is asking the questions, and I'm only asking the questions. You're doing the work. And then, and we both decided not to work together after that. She wanted someone to hear her vent, and I was not willing to do that again. And I have heard Katie in person do this. Someone's on stage and they're super difficult. She goes, honey, I don't think you're ready. Please step down. So I am not afraid to always maintain my own dignity in a session. And I have a difficult client. When I did that course, I had a really difficult client who was hysterical about blood being everywhere. And I didn't handle it very well. I was completely, going back on it now. I'm also a somatic therapist. I would just have them sit for a moment so I can gather myself up and have them sit. And I said, and I've heard Katie do this. So again, if I hear Katie do it, then I give myself license. But license with experience. I'm an educated facilitator. I've done the work thousands and thousands of times now, and I think I can say that literally. So when Katie, she said, honey, I want you to just close your eyes and breathe for a minute. And that's what I've done when I've had people who are, I didn't do it when I was at the Institute. I was too nervous about my grade. But so, with a person like that, if I did it again, where they're, but you don't understand, it was this and this. I couldn't find the one-liner. They were so hysterical. And so I had to sit. I had to sit and do my work with them in that moment. And if I was out in the world and that happened, I'd sit. And then when I noticed that they seem a little better, I said, would you like me to continue? And this is these are very gentle questions. And you don't have to drop anything that you believe. You don't have to believe anything I'm saying. This is all about you just testing this for yourself and see if you have some freedom. I said, this is for you. And I said, and I hear you're having a very difficult time. And then I go on. Because I had a woman who said to me, for example, she didn't know the value of the work, and she picked up a newspaper, an Indian newspaper. So you're telling me this man who put this woman on fire didn't do this? And I said, no, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that if you'd like me to ask you a few questions that may make it easier on your heart to move forward in your life right now with the grief that you're holding, we could do that. And then I did inquiry with her, and now she's very, very much into inquiry. And because she had no idea that, because remember, if we question a fact, the World Trade Tower fell down. I try not to do that. I usually ask people, the World Trade Tower fell down. I'm angry because the World Trade Tower fell down. Okay, I hear that. I might ask in certain situations, can you give me an example of what it is? If I feel if I can't support it, then I can't give it. I can't share. So I have to also look at what I'm capable of. Katie, she could like pull anything out of a hat. And I'm learning that. So you can question a fact, and people say, so you're going to tell me the World Trade Tower didn't fall down? I said, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to say that the way your life is going and how difficult you're having right now, according to you, I've heard their story, that asking these few questions may give you a little freedom around that. But I ask you to test it for yourself. I'm not, this is for you. And then if they go, no, this is too weird, I said, I can get that. I felt the same way. Oh, I was Katie's biggest doubting Thomas. When someone would get up there at the mic and say, you're telling me there's no torture in Guantanamo? And she's shaking. I thought, yeah, let's see how Katie gets out of this one. And things of that nature. And pain is always on the way out. I started going to the dentist and not getting any Novocaine. I said, I'm going to test the work. And what I've discovered is that the difficult clients, I sometimes have to deal with my difficulty first. And what they're saying, well, if they talk about a child that they lost, I have 3 children. I can definitely find something in there at times. So it requires me always to be in my own inquiry. That's how
what I'm hearing, Elle, is how beautifully you meet people where they're at. We work, the only way to work with you can't work against resistance, you can only work with it. And
Yeah.
I'm just remembering a difficult client from hell. It ended up being quite soft. There was just one question that got asked that seemed to just touch that person, and it just came out of me, and I was grateful. I just thought, well, let's see where this goes, and met her where she was. So beautiful.
Yes.
How you demonstrate that. Mindful of time, and seems to be, as Deepa was just sharing with me in the chat, some interest in continuing this conversation. So Deepa was just suggesting that a follow-up session could be discussed, if you're open to that, Elle.
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, but Elle
I'm
is
traveling.
aware of you're starting
No
new
commitments
engagement
now.
in January. So we will be in touch, Elle, and I think there are some participants who want to reach out to you also. And yeah, I mean, needless to say, it's like we are already demanding a next session because it's been terrific learning from you, and yeah, and doing these live case studies in your presence and seeing your gentleness. Wow, that is, yeah, I think that's something we all want to imbibe as we want to move the work in the world. Incredibly grateful to you for your time, and with your throat problem that you showed up fully present for us. Thank you so much, Elle.
Well, thank you so much. When we were all on the call with Katie, she was saying that she was closing the institute. I was surprised, but I was the one who said, my guru once said, he's got millions of people all over the world. He said, I'm not a personal master. I've come to make masters. And I thought, oh, of course. This makes sense. Katie has to close down all the ways in which we're afraid of not moving the work, because the work is not an entity. The work is us. Inquiry is what our heart was meant to do, to drop out of mind and into the heart and wait for the answer to arise. to have empathy and say, oh, I could imagine that would be difficult. How do you live your life? Believing that thought, just that simple, loving connection as she is. She's the embodiment of that. And so, yeah, if there's anything, yeah, I'd be happy to. Let's see what's next.
And this session, of course, has been lively because of the audience. Thank you, all of you, for showing up. And Sally, thank you for
Welcome.
your last minute and very valuable support. So I just put on the chat box. So there is an option for all of us who are moved to donate gift to Elle. Her PayPal details are in the chat box. Whoever is interested, please note that down. And yeah.
And regarding, Deepa, I want to say, and regarding that, what's most important is reciprocity is important. And it's also reciprocity for me to receive these opportunities. So if it, just if you wish to donate what you can, donate what you can afford or not. No one is ever turned away. That's not what this is about. This is about all of us in our humanity being able to be together and gifting each other and helping each other, and however that is for you in the world. And I'm always around. Since you're all far away, you probably wouldn't be. You can find me on WhatsApp, and you can always leave me a message. That's how Deepa got a hold of me. And whatever, if I don't answer, it's because I haven't found it yet. But I'm fairly available. So thank you all, and thank you, Deepa.
Thank you.
You're such a mover and a shaker. When we were in school together, I thought, oh, this person, what an energy, what a tour de force. Thank you.
Isn't she just?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good night, good morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good night, good morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.